I would like to welcome everyone to the August 23, 2021 regular board meeting for the town of Aberdeen. We do this twice a month, and you're always welcome to come and hear what your local government is doing. I'm going to pull my mask down so you can hear what I'm saying. We do have, I think there's some agendas. Are the agendas on the table? If you want an agenda, please pick one up. And if you would like to speak on a topic tonight, if you would fill one of these out, we just need these for our records of who's speaking. And I do want to remind the board, if you speak on anything tonight, make sure you turn on your speaker, your microphone, excuse me, so they can hear it. This is being recorded and it's being filmed. So I saw somewhere just recently there was a town in North Carolina where none of their recordings took place. They even recorded them, but none of them took. So they have no record of what they were doing. So please make sure that you speak into your microphone with it turned on. All right. Call to order would be the first item on your agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can rise, please. Thank you. Close out item 1 and go to item number 2, which is setting of the agenda. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, sir, the agenda is set.
All right. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Make a motion to accept the agenda. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Go to item number 3, which is consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held except on request by a member of the Board of Commissioners. And there's 4 of them. A, consider approval of resolution number 21-26 to accept surety for sidewalks for Windsway Farm Phase 2 in the amount of $300,157. B, consider approval of resolution number 2127 to accept surety for landscape for Thomas Tire in the amount of $20,280.63. C, consider approval of revision update to BB&T signature card. And D, motion to approve in concept the requested improvement in reimbursement agreement for North Poplar Street utility relocation as part of the large US 1 NCDOT improvements. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as is.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion from the board?
Yeah, I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
About item B. Is there a time limit, a time factor with that,
To the concept,
Item B.
B or D?
Thomas's Tire. Thomas Tire.
Is there a time limit?
A
She's
time
asking.
limit installed?
They're
No.
looking for a time, they can just do it in 3 months, whenever they want, or how?
Generally speaking, it
Just do it?
ranges. So we did not include a specific period in this resolution. Their timing right now is late September, early October. But in the grand scheme of things, because it's 125% more than they would have to install anyways, it behooves them to do it sooner rather than later. And this was a cash surety accepted by this board, so it's no bond or anything needs to be called. We actually have the money in hand.
Does that answer you? So what, it is bare back there. Are you talking about on Poplar Street? Yeah, I was, same question. They will have to landscape it, and so.
Yeah, and I guess maybe the short way to this, Mayor, I know where you're going with this. I mean, we could call the bond anytime we want, presumably. I think with the seasonal and that kind of thing, they don't want to plant a bunch of grass where that's going to die immediately or, not hit the timing right. That's all this is about, really. So it's not like it could be there 3 years later, it could still have the same situation. So I think everybody's on the same page, including them, to get it done as soon as they can.
I probably wouldn't want to be planting too much out there when it's 100-degree weather, so they may be probably waiting for a little time for it to cool down. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other question on this before the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Close out number 3, and we'll go down to number 4, which is informal discussion and public comment. And the first item is Maple Street issues and complaints related to railroad yard loading and unloading. And the town attorney, who represents the Bro Law Firm from Chapel Hill, is here, Mr. T.C. Morphus, and he is willing, he's here to answer any questions. So I do have some people that would like to speak on this item, and the way I got them in order.
Mayor, if I could, we put this early on the agenda because, typically, the public comment just is this public comment on different things. So the idea was to have Mr. Morphus, the town attorney, here, and just to give the board a quick background on this project. That way, the public comment, there won't be questions that we can address all in, in a few minutes with the background.
Sure.
That way, there won't be any of that, we're all operating from the same facts. So we figure if we give that introduction, we have this at the beginning of the meeting, and then you can take the public comment, and we think the questions might be, more focused on where we are and what we can do moving forward.
No, that's fine. Mr. You want to make any comments tonight?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Is that?
So I am really here for your benefit. I'm happy to answer questions you have. A number of things talking about, well, what are enforcement remedies, that sort of thing. Those are things I'd really like to provide more detail in closed session because, as you might have guessed, there are pros and cons. So, again, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I think a lot of what I'd like to discuss with the board should be done in closed session. I know there was some talk about providing some background from staff, and I can talk a little bit about that. Paul, do you want me to do that, or do you want to jump in on that, sir?
Well, maybe I can give the 2-minute version, and you
Sure.
can jump in and
Okay.
fill in
Very
the
good.
blanks, which should be helpful. And Mayor, this is in the written materials that you've got. I mean, obviously, this issue has been around for several years now. This is the lot located in the Maple Avenue Street by the railroad where it crosses as you're going up the hill. I think we're all very familiar with it, just past where the tracks cross, and actually right there where there's that railroad kind of work area on both sides, both sides of Maple Avenue or West Maple. And, it's probably been about 2.5 to 3 years ago when a new operation took over the business. There was a business being conducted where there was a transfer of basically agricultural lime, the so-called white powder that's been there, and the transfer of that from railroad to truck, it leaves a residue in the air. It can be very cloudy up there at times during the operations. So that's when I think the town and the surrounding owners to that property started being aware of that activity. There were complaints made with both the business owner, operator, and also with the town. The town spoke with the business operator on several occasions, really addressing a few issues. Just to summarize, the issues that have surrounded that site include really the trucks, the size of those trucks that are entering and exiting the site at all hours. Some of that has been addressed with more closely defined operating hours of around 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning, depending whether it's a weekday or a Saturday, and going until, I believe it's 8 or 9 at night, basically, with a limited daytime operation. I think early on, there was truck activity before 6 a.m., at 4 a.m. in the morning. And so basically, the owner understands the ordinance and adheres to that. And again, not to say there haven't been complaints since that change occurred for earlier times, but largely it seems like that has been addressed in terms of those hours of operation. That aside, I still think the noise of the trucks in and of themselves, even during those hours, are still a source of complaint for the surrounding property owners. on the excessive noise at the site. So you've got the trucks, but then you've also just got the loading operation, and there can be some loud noise that goes on during that time. Again, a little bit hard to measure, the noise at decibel level, but for those, and most I think have had some experience with that or been around it during that operating time. That is during the operating hours, but it's just a matter of, is it too loud for a train activity operation? What's the remedy, if any, on that? But that's the noise at the site during those hours when they're loading and unloading the material from the train onto the trucks. Another complaint has just been really the white powder physically being left on the site and on the roadway. Still an issue, I think, today. There have been some efforts to clean up, wet down the area and clean it off. That happens on occasion. I think that could be better handled, but that is a complaint. Another one is not just what's on the gravel and also on the roadway, but also what's in the air. Basically, during this transfer, some of that powder will get into the air, float around, it'll be there, and then it'll settle down eventually onto the ground, falls back to the ground. So the town, along with at least one of the property owners, and we've contacted the Fayetteville office of North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, who handles and regulates in this state both stormwater and also air quality, and they've been out on several occasions to address it. I think they've had some conversations with the business owner, but in my opinion, they haven't done anything but that. So that's where that is. Don't know if they're still monitoring the site. I know they've been out there as recently as the last couple of weeks, but I don't know that they have some big plan to change the operation out there at this point. I think the owner of the business might be here tonight. He may want to address that, but that's where that stands. Something difficult for the town to enforce is air quality. So we call the people who do that for a living, have that responsibility in the state, and they're the ones who have been on that addressing it. Another general complaint was basically just the geared toward the employees at the site, not wearing personal protective equipment, or any other OSHA violations that may be on the site with employee safety in mind. Again, that's an OSHA employee matter. We have spoken with and heard from OSHA. They've been out there. I think they've had some mask requirements and some other, I don't know if it was a washdown station or some other elements that they have asked or requested the operator of the site to meet. And again, that's an OSHA requirement, and they're there, so some adjustments have been made there, but again, that was a concern about the safety of the employees working in the site and their compliance. There's a sign posted about wearing masks and being safe, and I think there's been several sightings of employees not following those requirements at the site during the operating hours. And I'm sure there's other ones, but they tend to fall into those basic four categories, Mayor. And I wanted to make sure, because I know we've been dealing with a couple of people, including neighbors and also the operator of the site. There have been a lot of discussions, discussing with the appropriate federal agencies to get enforcement, mechanisms to the extent that it's required, by the town and also by the one or more property owners that are right there at the site. And so those have been conveyed to the extent that we can. We've certainly been available to answer any questions from the DEQ, the agency that's involved with this, to try to help their investigation and let them handle what they do in the town. So again, but that's where we are in terms of that investigation. I think, and the chief of police might be able to help a little bit, but I think even the state patrol has asked the operator, at least at one point, to clean up the road site or take better care of it. Again, some efforts there have been made, but again, I'm not sure as to the total satisfaction of those in the area. There could be more things, Mayor. You've got my memo on this in dealing with some of the history there, and I don't know if the town attorney has anything else to add or ask about that.
I really don't. I appreciate the detailed history though, Paul. I think it's important when we're talking about this, there are limits to what the town can do. And there may be some things that the town can do that we haven't yet. I could speak up about that broadly, but I really do think it would be more productive to provide you sort of pros and cons discussion in closed session. So unless any board members have any questions, I'm going to sit back down now.
There are several people that would like to speak, and they may ask a question that you may be able to help answer. I know, Mr. Hinton, you signed up. Did you want to speak or not? You're welcome to if you want to.
I'm here to answer any questions that anyone has.
All right.
I will go ahead and,
If you could, use the
You have to come up to the mic.
thank you. I'm here to answer any questions, and I'll also, while I'm here, go ahead and address some of these issues that were just brought up. The Department of Air Quality Control, we've been working with them over a period of time, and actually we got a call today, unsolicited, that they haven't found any violations and they're closing their case. The other ones on the environmental issues, again, OSHA, we're fully compliant with OSHA, environmental issues, so we don't have any problems there as far as we're concerned. We have done the recommendations that have been made. We put sprinklers out there to keep the dust down. We put gravel out there for the trucks to go over, so the residue goes down into the rocks. Again, any questions that I need to answer, I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
What was your name again, sir? What was his name? Your name? Yeah, what was your name again?
Hinton. 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 Thank you. The next that I had was Mrs. Hitchcock.
Give me 1 second, I apologize.
The-
Give me 1 minute.
He's going to get the microphone set up for you.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
And what was his title, the man that just spoke?
He's,
It's hard to hear everybody with masks on, I apologize. Did you say his name was Hinton?
yes,
And he's the supervisor of this operation, or the owner, or? You're the owner of the operation down here?
yes,
Okay, but you leased that business from Rockfish?
not the business.
You
not the
leased the
business.
space, or you leased the train? Uh-huh.
The transload property from the railroad.
That's, you lease it? Okay.
Is that ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So we have lived in
If
our
you get a little
house.
bit closer to the, is it turned on?
Yes, yes, sir.
If you can just speak a little bit closer, because we're trying to record this. You can take that off if you feel safe enough to do it.
Okay, we have lived at 300 North Pine Street, now Fayetteville Street, since 1999. We bought our house in December of '99, and at that time, the site, which is now designated 156 West Maple, was a green field. And so there was absolutely no way to predict what was going to happen in 2011, which is when the site began to evolve as an offloading site. I don't know, Mr. Hinton, when you became involved with
Miss,
that. but
Miss Hitchcock,
I remember going down there at 2 in the morning
Miss-
in
Miss-
my,
Miss Hitchcock, please address us, please. We can't hear you if you turn your head. I'm sorry. If you're speaking to him, we can't hear you.
I remember going down to the site at 2 a.m. in the spring of 2011, because there was a horrific noise going on down there in the middle of the night. And I go down there, and one of the trucks was offloading. And I'm just looking at this person in disbelief. What are you doing? I called the railroad the next day, and I spoke with a Mr. Horton, who basically laughed at me and didn't seem to be too concerned about the activity that was happening at that time of night. So since 2011, things have just gotten progressively worse as far as we're concerned. We have been witness to giant amounts of dust going into the air on a regular basis. And we have had trucks, as many as 12 a day, going back and forth by our house, part of which sits 24 feet from the road. And some of the truck drivers will come down the hill and blow their air brakes or honk their horns just to irritate us. And not too long ago, several weeks ago, I was walking a dog by the far side of the site, and all of a sudden, all this dust comes gushing at me. Was that intentional? I don't know. Obviously, somebody could have seen me. I don't know whether they did or not. But this has been going on for quite a long time. There have been times where the noise in our house from the operation has been so loud, we cannot have a normal conversation. The decibel level is over 80, which is far greater than what is normal hearing range on these occasions. I have called the police, which I've been told to do, and they would not enforce the noise ordinance. That you have several that are in place that would address this kind of noise. So we're kind of out of patience, but my question at this point is, what I don't understand is how we can have a day like today where there's all this dust going into the air first thing in the morning, and then all of a sudden it stops when Mr. Craven shows up on the site, and then it's quiet the rest of the day. So what it tells me is Sterling knows how to muffle the sound, they know how to limit the dust, and I do not understand why this does not happen every day. If it did, I wouldn't be standing here. So I would really like the town to see how we can work with everybody here so that it works for all of us. I don't quite understand how it can be a manageable situation some days and then the wheels fall off other days. Is it intentional? Is it being done to deliberately irritate people? I don't know. I don't know. But the problems we're having now have been going on for 5 years. 2016, the site just went wide open, and from there on in, it's quadrupled in activity, and it's just been too much. And I would like to know what, as citizens, we're supposed to do about that, because it's having a tremendously negative impact on our life. It's very stressful. It's been awful. And our property value, which we had hoped would accrue in value, obviously is not going to go as high as we would like it to because of the operation there. I also don't understand why something like this has to happen in the middle of a downtown area when you're trying, especially when you're trying to grow the town and make it a place where people want to move and come and shop and dine, and then you have this going on in the middle of the town. It just doesn't make any sense. So my hope is that we can come to some sort of a resolution with the company and see if we can't get them to be consistent about limiting the dust that they emit and muffling the noise that they make, and doing so on a daily basis so that you don't have one good day and then all of a sudden everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So that's my
Well, the attorney's here if you
spiel.
had any questions to ask.
Well, what is a
You
citizen supposed to do?
Please speak to the
What is a
microphone.
citizen supposed to do in a situation like this?
Well, remember, I'm the town's attorney, so I cannot give you legal advice. So the first thing I'm going to say is you should consult your own attorney.
I
And
don't have an attorney. I never needed one.
I understand, and I don't say that to be cute, but you need someone who can give you sort of your range of private options. I think one thing you can do is exactly what you've been doing. You're here tonight explaining to the board, to the business owner, problems you've been having, so that's very important. The other thing is you can talk to an attorney and see if you have these continuing problems and there hasn't been a resolution, do you have a claim for private nuisance? I mean, there is a whole body of law about the extent one person's operations can harm someone else's use of their property. So there are some things the town can do, but then there are some things you as a private citizen can do. But I can only give you so much guidance before my hands are tied because I work for the town.
Well, I've tried a couple of times to enlist legal advice, and I have not had much help. So I haven't got the name of anybody that I could call on.
I will be happy to, one thing I can do is give you a referral for other names, and
That
I'm
would
happy
be
to do
great.
that.
Okay.
Before I forget, I will give you a card this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hitchcock. Next one is it Diane Ennis? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Diane Ennis, and I live on Fayetteville Street. And this operation has now moved onto my street, where they're also pumping this dust. Candy and I may walk around this town more than anybody else does, and I get real concerned when I'm out walking and see such big plumes of dust, and know that I've got to walk through it. It just can't be healthy. There's got to be an issue on this. These trucks are not only tearing up the road, but they are also turning right onto Maple Street, even though there are signs prohibiting that. And I actually have a picture with license tag if anybody wants to see one. They're also now on Fayetteville Street, and so they've laid down the stop sign on Fayetteville Street and Blue Street. Haven't seen anybody come out there to fix that one yet. The plumes of smoke are not only what's coming from the site, but also as traffic is traveling on the roads. So as this gets dropped on the roads and then traffic comes along behind it, they're stirring it up too. So there's a lot more dust than you may think. The new site on Fayetteville Street is really concerning, considering that's in a neighborhood. It's also kind of in a holler, and so we don't have a lot of air circulation. You make noise down there, and it just bounces off. And so I'm concerned for all of the neighbors as far as what the dust is going to do on that. I agree with Candy that it's very unsightly coming into Aberdeen, and that may be something that it's a moot point, but it is unsightly. It's not a very good avenue into the downtown area. And then I do have a question about whether the discussion from the attorney in the closed session will be made available to the public at some time.
I think it only becomes publicly available when the matter is resolved, TC, or there's a lawsuit filed, if one were to be filed, when closed session minutes become available to the public.
That's exactly right, Paul. I mean, what the statute says is that the minutes are confidential so long as they frustrate the purpose of the meeting. And so I think once there was no longer an active issue, then that information could be made public.
I'd just like for you guys to consider the health of the people that are living in that area. It's a real concern. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else tonight on this subject? Anyone else? These were the three that I had that were turned in. If anybody else would like to speak, please do while it's still open. If not, I will close this out. Anything else? And we are going into closed session tonight on this subject. So the town board will be listening to what our attorney tells us or advises us, put it that way, on this subject. So it's not over tonight, but we will have a discussion and weigh options. Anything else tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I
One
think,
more.
are
One
you
more.
asking about, yeah, there might be an unrelated matter, just want to make sure we don't skip that. An unrelated matter. on
Yeah,
public comment.
there's an unrelated matter to that also in the closed session. You're right. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, I mean right now, just make sure it's not another public
No,
comment.
is this the same one? Same item? Oh, it's okay, different item, sorry, I'm sorry. All right, since no one else wants to speak on this one, I'll close out this is number 4, and we'll go to number 5, manager's report. Is there something on the agenda? Okay, so we need to reopen that one. so she can speak. Where is she? There she is. Okay. I closed out 4 in informal discussion, but she came in when I was about to close that. Would you like to speak on a subject, please? Yes, sir. If you'll come up. This is still the number 4. And please state your name.
Hello, my name is Christina McMaster, and I'm with Soiree on South at 111 West South Street. That's the intimate venue down here in downtown. I just wanted to come before you guys today and just really ask for your help. I've been working with Justin, and we've been in communication about our back lot. I don't know if you guys are familiar with our parcel, but we have that intimate venue space right there on the corner of Tarbell and South Street, right across the post office. So we have been hosting many community events as well as private events, and that back lot that is directly behind our property is owned by us as well. And that has been used as parking by our clients as well as the church and other downtown customers of other downtown businesses. I've been in contact with Justin, and it's been made clear that that lot cannot be used as parking and cannot be improved for a parking lot unless it's brought up to the UDO standards, because staff currently determines it as a vacant lot, not a parking lot. However, I think in good conscience, if any of you guys have been to our property or if you've been in this area for any extended period of time, you will notice that that lot has been used as parking. And it is very beneficial to be kept as parking for not only our business, but for the church across the street and other area businesses. So I guess today what I'm asking for is your help, because we do have a solution. I know that the UDO standard is very clear, and I fully respect the UDO standard. I know that that is set in place for a reason. But unfortunately, that standard is unattainable to small business owners that are coming in and trying to make improvements to the town. As you can see, we've put a lot of money into our venue. And so currently, the situation we're in is that it's sandy. And all of that gets tracked in to our venue, and it's already causing damage to our floors, but also to other area businesses. The church has had to replace carpet over the years because, their members bring in the sand from that. So our solution in the interim, we would like to get to the UDO standard, but our solution in the interim is to gravel the lot so that at least for community events and for parking purposes, it looks cleaner. We don't have that sand running off into the street, and it cleans up the place. Eventually, we would like to get to the UDO standard. However, it's just unattainable. We've gotten quotes, and it's $60,000 on up to get that curb and gutter and landscaped. And I fully understand that for other businesses like Best Buy, Taco Bell, whatever you have in other Aberdeen districts, that is attainable. That should be the standard. But for somebody that's mom and pop here in the Central Business District, it just isn't. But we're still wanting to make that improvement. We still want to better it. And so right now we're kind of left with the alternative of leaving it as is, or in the interim at least putting gravel so that our end solution would be bringing it up to the standard. So really, I'm just here to ask for some help on how to make that improvement.
Anyone?
Hey, Justin, on this vacant lot, is there anything prohibiting a business owner who owns a property from graveling a vacant lot?
Yes, sir. The UDO standards, which covers a range of standards, not just asphalt. In fact, asphalt's not even one of them. Curb and gutter, but more importantly, a driveway permits is required with a driveway apron to protect our asphalt and to prevent gravel from being tracked into the roadway. So to protect our entities and our facilities, the Public Works Director, TRC, and myself put in these rules in place for all development. Currently, my office has deemed this to be a vacant lot. Going back to the aerials, as I'm sure Mr. Mayor could remember, that used to be a building on it as of recently as 10, 15 years ago. The act of parking on a vacant piece of property does not make it parking. It's there, it's sand. If somebody, an engineer of some sort, could point to me where it's been used as parking and has been improved as such, then I would allow a non-conforming use to continue, but I've not seen anything like that.
So repeat that again about a non-conforming use?
If we can deem that a non-conforming use, which I don't know how we get to, you could maintain what you have. But again, there is no gravel on that site, so I don't know how you claim that graveling something is maintaining non-existing gravel.
Is it true that the town is looking at areas in and around there to improve the town's parking situation?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So how do we get to helping this business owner be able to help us get to our parking plan specifically for that area?
I don't have any creative solution off the top of my head.
You own that piece of property, you say?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, we
So
do.
you own the building
We own the- we-
entirely?
yeah.
You don't just rent that building?
No, we own the building, and we own the adjoining properties, and we've done everything else to standard, which we fully
yeah.
are for. We want to improve it to what the standard is, but unfortunately, that back area is just, it's unattainable for us to do. And so in the interim, it's leave it as is, or, gravel it and work towards that, which we've worked on getting quotes, and we're willing to do that. But right now,
Well, other people use that parking as well, right? The other businesses, they don't.
Absolutely.
1350 and other people, so it's kind of like a town parking as it is anyway. It's not just, you don't isolate it as just for your business, even though it's yours.
correct.
So, I mean, the only thing I could see, and I don't know financially, is there some way the town could purchase that piece of property and we improve it, and then it could be of use of everybody, but I don't know if that's even feasible at this point.
The
And
town
if you'd
has
be willing to
asked-
do that.
Well, the town has asked for us to donate the land, and that was something that I discussed with Justin about donating the land, and that just is not feasible for us to do, to donate something that we're still working to pay off,
I
as a
understand.
startup business.
Right, I understand.
Selling, I'm not sure that we're there, just because we do need that parking, we do
True.
need that to be kept as parking. But we have been very neighborly. The church has used that for years for parking, and we could fence it off and, per UDO standards, and keep that as private, but we haven't, because we see that there's a need in the town, and we're trying to be neighborly, and we want to, do the best for every business owner in town. We're not gonna go in and just start blocking things off and private parking here, private parking there, because it does get a lot of use. And it does benefit more than just our business.
So you've held discussion with the church and possibly the other business owners to see if any of them would be, I mean, if you guys could go in together, that might not be feasible as well, but, because it's your property and they might not have any, stake in it
Correct.
other than just donate and improve your property. But I'm just looking at it as, I've used it when I've come to your bashes and things, and it seems like, it's there where anyone could park, any of those
Yeah.
businesses right along there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's where we kind of run into some sticky situations, because we could approach others to donate towards the 60,000. That was just one quote that we got for that, but we could have others donate towards that. But in return, let's say in a couple of years, we want to sell the property, then where does that kind of leave them?
Yes.
Where does that leave us? And so we just would rather just keep it our property with allowing other businesses to use it. But also we want to improve it, not only for ourselves, but for others.
But my concern, based on the gravel question, is they could get donations and spend 60,000 on asphalt, and that's not authorized.
There would be other contingents on terms of other site improvements to be made, yes.
So I guess, Mayor, I'd like to ask the planning director to really come back to the board with a range of courses of action to look at this just based on reality and the fact that it's used as parking by multiple businesses, and what options the town can engage with the local business community on looking at this as part of an overarching long-term strategy for parking in our downtown area, which has been clearly documented as a priority for us to include our strategic plan. So, it doesn't mean we can get anywhere, but until I have a full range of options, can I engage the town manager and his staff and speak with the mayor and the board on what we think we can do, and more importantly, the time in which it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're here for, is just to ask for help.
Anyone else? We will do that.
All right,
That's a good suggestion.
thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I had actually closed number 4, but is anyone else that is still here that wants to speak on the subject? If not, we'll move on to item number 5, which is manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. There was a report being passed around there, I think, the written report version. And just since we got several things on the agenda again, standard updates from each department you've got there. And all good reports, I think you can see from the departments. Things are busy and have been busy this summer by and large. This is a report really through the end of July for most departments. And just a couple of quick things outside the department specifically. Mayor, I think you know we reported about 2 weeks ago that the town did receive its first payment of the ARP funds from the federal government. That first payment was approximately $1.25 million. So we did receive that money. It was electronically transferred a couple of weeks ago. And so we do have that safe and secure in our bank account. And that's the first of 2 payments. The second payment will come approximately a year later, next August presumably, in the same amount. The U.S. Department of Treasury, so they're working on what they call the final rule, Mayor. There's been a lot of gray area discussions about how these funds can be used. As we've said many, many times, the water and sewer use of the funds is fairly secure. The rest of it is not quite as clear. Other things are, almost on a weekly basis, becoming a little bit more clear. And what they call the final rule is supposed to give the local governments kind of the final evolution of how these funds can be used. We don't have that yet. There's what they call an interim rule that's in use now. And most people have advised to hold off on a lot of these expenditures until that final rule comes out. Again, if it's something outside of water and sewer is fair game now, pretty straightforward in terms of how that can be used. A few other things that may apply in terms of like preventative measures on directly related with COVID or, personal protective equipment for employees or staff or citizens in a certain degree. That's pretty clear, black and white. Those are easy. It's the other infrastructure projects that become a little bit more complicated as to what we can use it on and how much. And that's what I think the final rule will resolve, well, at least give us a better picture. I think there's still going to be a lot of discussions about what's an appropriate use and what seems like appropriate use, and everybody seems committed to that use, works, and moving forward at that point. So I wish it were more clear. Everyone, local government wishes the uses were more clear, but that is just where we are with this. So still feel excited about the use of these funds, and we've got a few things that we're working on. I did receive from the department heads. I didn't share it in this agenda, but I think maybe at the work session I can give you a good picture of things that each department has kind of created their wish list of items that we might be able to use these ARP funds for that are outside of our already approved capital budget for this year. So we'll see kind of how the numbers come together. And, I told the department heads to be reasonable in terms of something they think would be covered by an ARP use of funds, and also, respectful of the amount, and see where we are in terms of how all those things kind of tie together and what our budget looks like on the ARP side. Because as you know, we took the additional step of creating, a grant/project ordinance for just ARP funds. So the revenue side of that, at least the first half, has now been funded through this transfer of funds. So that's the good side. That has been put in place. The second part of the expenditures, that's what we bring back to the board and say, is this something like expended on? And there is something later in the agenda we'll talk about, which is the vaccine incentive for employees that we could use these funds for directly. And that could be an early use of these funds. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. And again, Mayor, a good report on the PD facility. If you haven't been over there lately, a lot of walls, fixtures, cabinets, lockers, You know, interior finishes are well underway. Many of them are completed, including walls that have paint on them, especially in the renovated facility, the conversion there. So it's really, really moving along there, Mayor. Still a ways to go, but we do still appear to be on schedule for the move-in date of late October, or completion date, late October or early November on that facility. So if any of the board members want to take a quick tour, just let us know, and we can walk you over there. Philip's over there about 5 times a day, and Carl's over there right behind him too, trying to make sure everything is in place. As far as the budget status of the project, we're right at budget with the construction, right where we want to be, and we still have funds available, both in the contingency and a little bit of what we call the soft cost, which was our budgeted amount that we allowed for furniture, fixtures, and those sort of things. Probably will use those funds, or just about all of those funds, but we still have protected some of the contingency funds in that project. So I think we're in good shape financially there. And really, you know, things can change, you know, every week, but we don't see any large surprises at this point. So we're hoping to get through it and stay under the total budget for this project. I mean, that's all I have. Of course, Butch is going to give you his financial report in a few minutes separately.
Any questions of the manager's report from the board? Thank you. Close 5 and go to number 6, which is financial report and quarterly update from
Good evening,
Mr. Watson.
Mayor and Board. I'll try to be quick since you have a long agenda tonight. I've put in front of you tonight the memo that everyone received last Friday, the quarterly comparative analysis, some information on deposits, and there's an extra sheet on the back I'll talk about that you did not receive because I got some numbers after the agenda packet basically was being processed. And first thing, take a look at the general fund through the end of June. And these are preliminary final numbers because we will have some adjustments based on what the OPEB report shows to the auditors and the law enforcement officer, separation allowance report, and so forth. But if you compare the revenue expenditures to just a net income basis, and that's on the memo, and I'll give you some updated numbers since then after I get to the sales tax analysis. We will probably end up somewhere in the range before the final sales tax we received last week, which is not on the memo and not on this because it came in later. A little bit of $1.4 million in net income. That is correct, 1.4 million. Then, if you add some other items that came in Thursday or Friday, the June sales tax number, the beer and wine information, and the solid waste, we'll be around, before any adjustment or anything, $1,700,000 range. The sales tax payment was approximately $243,000 just for June. And I'll get to that in a moment, again, on the sales tax analysis for the year. That's the overall picture for the general fund. Some specific numbers, and this is like Mayor Pro Tem Danley says, he likes the green information on my memo, so it stayed green to this point. The purposes, we have real and personal property tax. We ended up at 103.99% for the year, after any budget adjustments. The motor vehicle tax revenue were at 120.51% after any adjustments. Garbage fee revenues, we ended up at 107.55%. The building permit revenue collected was around 104, 105% for the year. The ABC net revenues were about 105%. Sales tax revenue, again, I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. Let's skip over that. Utility franchise tax collected was about 106%, and the power bill revenues was like 98.49%. Now, I'll remind you that last year, not this year, but last year when we set the most recent budget, at that time, the legislature had not gone home. So they changed the calculations, so we were budgeted properly, and they changed it slightly, the overall power bill payment for the whole all the towns. That's why we only got 98.49%, not 100%. And at this point in time, this year's legislature is still in session. So that number right now could change as well. We will not know probably for another month on that one. So any questions on the general fund at this point in time? Okay, on the water and sewer fund, that number is close to what's on the memo and on the spreadsheet, but we got a little bit extra revenue as well as some encumbrances that we had encumbered, did not have to expense. So we ended up somewhere around, before any adjustments, about $366,000 for the year, for the net income for the water and sewer. Some of the specifics on that, the system development fees revenue was about 99.47%. And recall, we did budget amendments at the end of June. If you did, before you do budget amendments on the original budget, we would have been over 100%. So that's based on the most recent budget number. Water and sewer revenues, we ended up about a little above 100%. Water and sewer tap revenues about 103.66%. And the bulk water for Moore County about 102.57%. That's the specific numbers of those particular items for the water and sewer. So any questions on that? Okay, on the Sportsplex project, excuse me, the police station project, and again, that's the one where we try to do draws about the time we pay out money. So at the end of June, we had received $3,206,000 from First Bank. We had spent $3,209,000. That will catch itself up in the August draw, September draw, or October draw, one of those areas, as well as the other expenditures that we have. So that's a capital project that just continues to roll. On the Sportsplex project, that's the same way. And again, the current budget on that is $1,130,000. Remember, at the end of June, the board did a budget amendment and raised the threshold on that budget from like $600,000 to $1,130,000 range. Year to date, we received a $301,000. That's a transfer from the general fund that the board approved. We've only spent $103,000 to date as of the end of June for that. Again, that carries over already into this year since it's a capital project. So overall, if you take a look at the capital projects as well as the water and sewer fund, we were, before all the sales tax numbers and everything additional came in, we were around $1,954,000. So if you add $250,000 to $300,000 to that number, you'll see that we were above $2 million for net income at that period of time. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
Okay, on the next page, and that's at the next section of my memo, is deposits and investments for the town. And I'll just look at the bottom numbers. I won't go through all these individually. But at the end of June last year, the town had in the bank $7,295,000. At the end of June this year, we had $9,616,000. So that's an increase a little over $2.3 million. Again, that comes from sales tax revenue increase, property tax revenue increase, building permit revenues increase, and so forth. So that all adds up over the whole year. So just cash difference and what we did not spend that we had budgeted for as a net. So any questions on that? Okay, I'm gonna save the best for last. So on the last page, again, I put this together late last Thursday or Friday. This is a sales tax analysis showing from year 17, 18 through the most recent year. And you'll see where in the budgeted revenues in 17, 18, we're at $1,074,000 range. We ended up at $1,009,000 range, so about an increase of 12.33% from what we budgeted. For 18, 19, we budgeted $1,832,000, received $2,065,000, about a 12.74% increase from the prior year, or from the budget. Then on the 19-20 year, that went So it had an increase of $303,000 from the budgeted number of $1,847,000, again, a 16.42% increase. And then for this year, we budgeted $1,795,000. So I'll stop right there for a moment. The reason we budgeted less in the 1920 year than we did the 2021 year is because during the process of financing the police station project, the local government commission, that's when COVID first started, they wanted Paul to back off of his budgeted number for sales tax because nobody knew what was going to happen. That was last April, May, if I remember correctly. Is that correct, Paul? In that range of last year. So they wanted us to reduce it from the $1,847,000 to the $1,795,000, where we had projected higher than the $1,847,000. So I want to make sure I made that clear.
Butch, was that simply to ensure that the town was in a solid financial footing to secure the financing?
No, what they were concerned about, nobody knew, including the staff at the state treasurer's office, where COVID was going to go. They were concerned that they were hearing and seeing that the revenues were going to drop.
So it wasn't really linked to the police station effort?
No, it just came up in the discussions.
Oh, okay.
Because they wanted to see our most recent budget that we had projected for the next year included debt service over time.
What did you mean, Butch? He had to back off the numbers, he just had to project?
Reduce it. They wanted us to reduce what we originally projected for the 2021 year to the $1,795,000 where we ended up at. I couldn't tell you at this point in time where we were. We probably were, Paul can correct me, probably $120,000 higher if I remember correctly.
That's right.
In range, higher than the $1,847,000 number.
But we did well, though.
Oh, yeah,
After it all
we would have been above
After it all
budget
came
anyway.
down, we didn't know where it was going, but then it was
Right.
actually
So
great.
obviously, and even the state of North Carolina's budget projections, they did the same thing. The overall Office of State Budget, they said, oh, well, we're going to be way below. Well, they were like $6 billion over this year. So anyway, we'll get to the point of the analysis. If you take a look at these numbers, we were a little above $800,000 above what we budgeted. That included the most recent sales tax payment for June we got last week. And I talked about that, I think, in April or May. The sales tax collections for online changed in February of 2020. In November, I think 2 or 3 months before that, maybe 6 months, the legislature made a decision to start collecting online sales tax, not knowing COVID was going to hit. So that was a fortunate thing. So that's one reason it probably went up, but not the full reason. A lot of the reason is growth in the area. And I think Justin has already verified this. Population for 10 years went up 25%. And a lot of that's not over the 10-year period, it's probably the last 3 years, most likely. Plus the online sales tax collections. So overall, we went up a little over 45% from what we budgeted. So if you take a look at what we budgeted for the current year, and if we get the exact same thing next year, we'll be about 10% above what we budgeted for this year. I just want to point all those numbers out. Again, that was not in the packet, that was just in a handout today. Any questions, Mayor and Board?
Even with the almost a year and a half of COVID from March 2020,
Yes, sir.
the town is doing well. So we appreciate these numbers.
Thank you.
It really looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Mayor, before we go to the next item, I just wanted to let you know, I think you may already be aware of this, but the remainder of the board. So in the present budget for the state, you hear a lot of stuff about what's in the budget, when's it going to pass. They're talking about now in Raleigh, there's a committee that's formed to reconcile the budget between the House and the Senate in North Carolina. And, but just so you're aware, we sent those requests for some different funding options to be budgeted directly by the state. And in that budget right now is a $350,000 transportation amount for Aberdeen to use toward those improvements by the new park, which was one thing we requested. Another thing that's in the budget also is a $200,000 request or item, which is the carryover from, I think, 2 years ago, from when Representative Bowles placed something in there for the original concept of the Sportsplex. That's carried over into this budget too. So those two things are in there specifically for Aberdeen. I just want to let the board know. So please keep your fingers crossed, and well, hopefully that budget will get passed, not vetoed, and become law in North Carolina here pretty soon. So we'll keep an eye on that for you.
Can I ask a question, Paul?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
we had discussed at one point about Representative Bowles, I think, and the Friends of the Library. Is any of that to do with none of that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I would tell you, he tried. I spoke to him directly. He tried, and they did not allow that to go in the budget. It wasn't, he tried, and he tried in earnest to get that in there, but it did not make the cut in terms of moving forward.
Thanks for the update.
During this reconciliation, the Senate and the House has to get together and make sure this budget goes to the governor. It's one item, and we're all hoping that the governor will sign this budget. He has not signed a budget, the last couple of budgets, but hopefully he will sign this one. So if he does, there's a number of things that we can do with that money. The $200,000 is for the Parks and Rec and the Sportsplex, and also to do some road improvements, because if we open this Sportsplex as it is with that two-lane road, we're asking for trouble, in my opinion. Something's got to be done to make turning in and out of it a lot easier. It would, in my opinion, it would be dangerous if we opened it as it is. So hopefully this will go through, and if the money comes, clears the budget, and the governor signs it, we can make that happen.
Okay, that'd be good.
Anything else on this? Anyone? Okay, I'll close that out and go to number 7, public hearing and new business. Annexation number 49221, submitted by Kidder Construction, Inc., for a total of 131.37 acres for the balance of the Martin Farm subdivision located between Roseland Road and North Carolina Highway 5, identified by PID 0005290 and PID 000500140. This is a public hearing.
Sir, Mr. Mayor, this is annexation of 2 portions of parcels that are adjacent to the Martin Farm subdivision and will be part of the overall plan. Kidder Construction submitted the annexation request, again, for 2 parcels. They're generally located south of NC5 off of Farrell Avenue as well, or Farrell Parkway, as well as east of Rowe Avenue and north of Roseland Road. They can be identified generally as Track 1 and Track 2 on the submitted boundary survey. Track 1 is all of parcel 50140, which is north of Roseland Road, consisting of approximately 119 acres, and that extends north to the parent track that Farrell Parkway is surrounded by. Track 2 is part of that parent track, which is 52290, which is generally considered south of NC5 at the end of Farrell Parkway as well as east of Rowe Avenue, and it consists of almost 13 acres. All said, it's 131.37 acres that needs to be annexed. This is the parcels, the general layout. You can see NC5 running from the top of the screen, northwest corner of the screen, generally to the northeast. And the blue line indicates our current corporate boundaries. Obviously, the out is out of our corporate limits, whereas the in is in. Most of this area that you see here is either in our ETJ or our corporate limits. There are some that, particularly across Roseland, that's in the county. This is track 1, highlighted in red. That's the overall tract that's approximately 118 acres. And then this is track 2, and this is why it's a portion. The track 2 is actually not a parcel. It's part of the overall parcel where if you see feral and the ends above and below track 2, that's all one parent tract. For whatever reason, only part of it was annexed. My interpretation more than likely is that those properties were combined after the annexation, for one of them was done and the other one never was. Per the CZ 2019-01, I believe, which is the plan development that goes with these parcels in question, before any permits can be approved, preliminary plats or other, for any phase of Martin Farms, all tracts need to be annexed. So that's part of the reason why the request is for tonight. To give everybody a little bit more brief, where you see the cap and gown, or just cap, I guess, is Aberdeen Elementary School. So that was part of this overall project. Will be completely surrounded. Again, the parcels are 5014 and a portion of 52290. It was CZ 1903, which was the zoning in place for the plan development. And again, it's considered contiguous, so there should be no questions regarding satellite annexations. This is the zoning in place. The zoning map is incorrect, but it gives you a better idea of the surrounding. The parcels in the kind of middle green right there that's hashed out, that's track 1. It's shown on the map as R18. We no longer have that zoning district, and it is planned development. And then the more mint green color in between track 2 and track 1 is where the Aberdeen Elementary is. And again, all of this is planned development. So the zoning's in place. We just have not had a chance to update our zoning maps yet. But those are the 2 parcels in question. And the hatched area that differentiates the different parcels is ETJ versus corporate limits. And again, there's the school location. As such, there needs to be 4 rules and requirements that the Board of Commissioners consider these voluntary annexations. 1, does it bear the signature of all landowners with the area to be annexed? And is it adequately served by the same municipal services provided by the town's corporate limits? Most of those are considered part of the town clerk's sufficiency review, which we already took care of at the previous work session. And then 3 and 4 is the debt obligations from service. The subject lands don't exceed our anticipated revenues. And is the public health, safety, and welfare of the town residents and the residents of the lands in the best interest served by the annexation. Staff does feel that it bears all the signatures per the sufficiency review by the town clerk. We feel the area annex can be served adequately by our municipal services that we offer in other areas of our corporate limits. We feel that it will not exceed the anticipated revenues for the debt, for the obligation for the services that will be provided, and we feel that it will be in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the town residents should this properties be annexed. I'm available for any questions. I don't believe the property owner or the engineer of records here to answer any questions, but I am if you have any.
So this property, can you go back to that one? Okay, so track 2 is going to be housing. That's not going to be the commercial part that's going to be on highway. This is going to be just homes being built, correct?
Per the zoning, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then all these lots adjacent to it are homes that exist at this point, or are they just
I
potential
don't know which
homes?
ones you're pointing to.
The horseshoe.
It looks like a ladder going up beside track 2, going all the way up to highway.
I believe most of those, if not all of those, are residential properties. I'm not sure, though. They're outside the town corporate limits, and they are zoned that way. Whether they're vacant.
Yeah, it said it was out, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think there's any business along there.
There may be. The yellow actually is zoned residential multifamily 6, and that's actually a trailer park or a manufactured home park. I misspoke. So I'm just not aware of what's on that property. I do know there are some businesses along Sandpit, particularly where the light yellow, the light industrial is for the Ridgeline Road and Aquashed. But again, I'm not aware of what's on that road, but I would guess it is residential as it's zoned that way.
If you cross Sandpit, you're in the county.
In certain areas, again, anything that's got any kind of color in this particular map is either in our corporate limits or our ETJ. Across Sandpit, you do have, I believe that's years ago it was a proposed church site, that green to the left of Sandpit. Obviously to the north of that, the light orange is light industrial. That's got Pet Lodge for Pinehurst. It's got a couple different storage units, a U-Haul. I believe it's got a John Cole's Plumbing, and then obviously the blue, which fronts NC5 on that side of Sandpit is, I believe there's an animal shelter or an animal clinic there, vet, Habitat for Humanity, and some other businesses along that frontage. But again, everything in color that's shaded a form of color is in our zoning boundary, either our corporate limits or our ETJ.
Justin, looking back at the annexation before us of these two tracks, I recall back when the developer was making the proposal for this development, and there were citizens that lived on log cabin that spoke and mentioned concerns and just had general comments about the development. Looking at the map you had with the blue and the red, it appears to me that, unrelated but still curious to me, there's going to be kind of a unannexed island in the stream.
Donut hole, yes, sir.
A donut hole?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a
For
technical
those
term.
residents that live off of log cabin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's just an acknowledgement that we're going to create and I'm sure we have probably several of those in the town. It's just very apparent on this one that
Yes, sir.
there's going to be this small community that still is unannexed around completely annexed
Yes, sir.
properties.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And to your point, there's several donut holes throughout the town.
This is a public hearing. Anyone?
So the piece that's between the two little, track two that's in between there, that is a private owner's piece of property, or is that?
That's a separate
But don't-
standalone
is that-
parcel owned by somebody not affiliated with this project.
So the houses will be built around that piece of property
Yes,
possibly?
ma'am.
And that owner also signed off on this?
Uh,
You had to get signatures, you said, from everybody around there?
No,
so-
no, no, ma'am. We only are required to get signatures of the properties in question. So the little, it's not quite a donut hole yet, but to your point, the property on Row that's in the U area, we are not obligated to get their input with regards to annexation of other property.
Okay.
They were made aware of the rezoning per state statutes. We did post the property in both locations at both ends of the U along Row when this went before y'all in the summer of 2020. And we did notify everybody within 300 feet. So they were made aware of this project, but this particular request before y'all tonight is for the annexation of the land.
Any others? All right,
I make a motion that we.
we got to close.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if anybody else had anything to say. Anybody else? All right, I'll close the public hearing. We'll go to 2, which is consider approval of annexation number 49-221.
I make a motion that we approve the voluntary annexation of AN 21-03.
That's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So there's another annexation request. Again, it's a remainder lot for a subdivision that for some reason or another never got annexed. This is by NC Evergreen Development, which is the new developer out there at Sandy Springs, and this parcel, approximately almost 3.5 acres, is resultant of the Sandy Springs subdivision. Again, the application was made by NC Evergreen Development, LLC, for one parcel. It's roughly located at the east of Midsummer Street Terminus. It currently does not have any road frontage. It is kind of a remainder lot right now left over prior to the UDO requiring lots to front real property or real right-of-ways. So as such, it's kind of out there on an island by itself. The parcel is identified in the annexation survey as, it doesn't really have a name, but it is identified as 3.479 acres. This, again, is the area map. Obviously, as Commissioner Danley pointed out, we do have some of these areas where it kind of gets funky between out and in the corporate limits. You can see the Sandy Springs subdivision with Cordy Yard. Caulfield is a road in there. There's for sure Walkabout, as well as Summer Wind and Sandy Springs. So you can kind of see the neighborhood developing around it. and that is currently within our corporate limits. Most of the land around here is also in our ETJ. For example, you can see Parkway Meadows, which is where it says Foothills Parkway. And then as you go further down PD Road, it kind of curves right there, right about where it says in and heads back to 15501. This is the parcel in question. Obviously, again, it doesn't have any frontage on any real piece of parcel, but this is part of the plan of Sandy Springs when it was first developed, I believe in 2007. It just was, for whatever reason, not annexed. It will be needed for the remainder of the development, mainly before they start development, but also because of the number of dwelling units per acreage and to keep the dwelling units per acreage down to what was originally approved. Again, the PID is 2017-0121. It's currently zoned R20. It is considered a contiguous annexation. This is the zoning and map. Obviously, the hatch area, again, is the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, so it's technically in the county, but we do have police powers and zoning control over it. You can see in the green, the R20. In fact, all the green except for the mint green is R20. The mint green is R10. We do have some heavy industrial adjacent to it. The yellow is another manufactured home park, although it is zoned residential multifamily 6. We have a little bit of O&I along PD, and the parcel in question is highlighted in red. So it'll be annexed into the corporate limits should y'all see the will tonight, and then obviously it will be added to the preliminary plat and the remainder phases that should be under construction very soon. I believe it's 3, 5, and 6 for the subdivision. Again, you know, the the 4 standards is signatures of all landowners. It is currently owned by NC Evergreen, as confirmed by the town clerk at our last meeting. It is adequately served by the same municipal services. It does not exceed our anticipated revenues for any debt that we are obliged for the service, and the public health, safety, wellness, and the welfare of the town will not be harmed in serving this annexation. Again, staff feels that the signatures are all there. The annexation can be adequately served. It does not exceed our anticipated revenues and will be in the best interest of the neighbors, the health, safety, and wellness of the town residents served by this annexation. Again, the applicant's not here, but I'm available for any questions you may have.
Yep, this is also a public hearing, and is anyone here that wants to speak on this? I don't see anyone, so I'll close it. We're just consider approval.
Mayor, I move that the board approves annexation number 49321 submitted by NC Evergreen Development for a total of 3.479 acres. That is a vacant piece of property that is part of the proposed Sandy Springs subdivision, generally located at the terminus of Midsummer Street, to be annexed into the town of Aberdeen.
That's the motion. Is there a second? There is a second. Discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, down to number C, consider approval of an ordinance for a temporary road closure for the night market at Soiree. Request is to close a portion of Tarbell Street on September 16, 2021, October 21, 2021, November 18, 2021, and December 16, 2021, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes, sir. I'll take this one very quickly, as y'all did hear this at the work session. The dates have been amended. Staff did have an opportunity to meet with all interested departments, such as the police department, the fire department, and public works. And we are all on their schedules to make sure that this event goes off without a hitch, that all of our rules and requirements are met with regards to public safety. I believe they are working with the police department right now to ensure a off-duty police officer is hired, as alcohol will be served. And it's basically the same exact request y'all heard last time, but with the new dates. And again, we did have the opportunity to meet with all the departments, and DAB is generally in favor of this request as presented.
Any questions from the board?
Mayor, I had a quick question, really just for education. Justin, I see volunteer barricade attendants on here. Who might that be? Just curious.
The applicant will need to provide that.
Okay. So it's applicant just going to find volunteers to help out? Okay.
That,
I don't know
that's
if that was a
per,
staff
that's,
thing or not.
sir?
I don't know if that was a staff volunteer or if there
No,
was.
sir.
Okay.
No,
So
that's a staff request between the police department and public works department to ensure that nobody's going around barricades.
Right, but I mean, in terms of attend it, you're talking about to man it once it's there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to set up the barricades?
Staff will.
Staff will. So staff's doing that, and then somebody's going to man the barricades once they're up. Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
If anyone tonight attended the first one, it went off real well. It was a big crowd. It brought a lot of people to downtown Aberdeen, so we appreciate your efforts. And this just improves what we have in Aberdeen when we have things like this. So is there anyone wanting to make a motion to accept
I
this?
make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve an ordinance for temporary road closure for the night market. A portion of Tarbell Street on September 16th, 2021, October 21st, 2021, November 18th, 2021, and December 16th, 2021, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m.
I second.
There's a motion and a double second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank y'all. D, consider approval of an ordinance amending the Aberdeen Code of Ordinance to modify the traffic code regulations regarding stop signs and speed limits throughout the town.
Mayor, this is really just a more of a procedural kind of cleanup of our speed limit stop sign ordinance, which has been around since I think the early 70s. And really, it's just to make it a little bit more, you can see the red line that Justin's brought up, that's in the memo. It's really just to make things a little bit more user-friendly, to get a speed limit up and going, get it in on the books and enforceable by our police department. So there's no question at all about the enforceability of those statutes. Local governments, towns in particular, are given great flexibility in terms of the speed limit and its enforcement, and we're just trying to follow up with that, including the acceptance of a plat, approval of a plat when the roads go up. Basically, what it's saying is that whether the board, the public works director, or the town manager, and because it can come up in different ways, can post or order to be posted a speed limit sign, and then basically once it's posted, it's enforceable by our police department. And you might know this occurs in different times, different ways, with regard to like a new neighborhood, unless there's a special road, typically has a speed limit. That's part of what they erect. So that would be like the public works director would be kind of doing that one. Another one might come up as a change that the board would want to hear because they think traffic is going too fast on a road in town, and so the board would take action there. The other ones that town manager might do would just be correcting something or just kind of a cleanup item here and there. But it gives everybody the flexibility. And of course, the board can change the speed limit anytime they want. It also makes the procedural side of following it. Once it's posted, it's effective, and we will keep, but it doesn't invalidate the validity of a posted speed limit or stop sign. We'll keep a record log of the speed limits on each road, but we're not going to make that a disqualifying event if it doesn't make the log or comes later. It's still an enforceable speed limit. There have been some problems, here actually in Aberdeen and other places with some of these procedural things, and we're just trying to follow the state law, and this is the practice of most large and smaller municipalities to have this kind of effective measure. That's all it is. So nothing really big, just giving us that flexibility, in today's world.
Paul, what brought this around?
Yeah.
I thought for
question-
sure it was the four-way stop on Maple and Poplar.
No, it actually surprisingly is not.
It was all about stop signs.
No, it
and speed
surprisingly
limits.
is not. It was
Okay.
just some other questions about speed limit signs and whether they were on a list or not on a list, and it just got to be, we feel like we're chasing our tail on this.
Yeah,
And
it
it's,
seemed
it,
pretty
yeah,
complex as far as what might have been coming at the
Yeah,
town.
it
on
was.
Scenarios for what was and what wasn't and when.
No, it was really just a few little examples here. And I know the police department, they try and follow the rule of the state statute, the law, and then we have special rights as a municipality. And sometimes that gets to be confusing when it's a DOT road that's actually in our jurisdiction, but it's a DOT road, they have a slightly different procedure of how they have signs posted and how they do not. We want to make sure that we don't get mixed in that DOT, which has a few more requirements. They feel, oh, we have to do the same thing. We do not. And that's what this is clarifying, to be honest with you.
And it
At
wasn't
the
a
end.
simple change. There was a lot of strikeouts and, well,
Absolutely.
more red than new
That's-
than blue, but.
That's right. We just tried to kind of, you know how we like to overkill things, to make it very clear that it is what it is. And,
Never.
but I'm glad you asked that. Maple Street has been going great.
Yeah.
Knock
I
on
drive
wood.
by
And,
often, and it
it's
seems like
still,
everybody's abiding by the new intersection, so.
absolutely.
I did have one other question, and this is just a point of clarification, because I think it's a matter of record in our packet. On the memorandum, it says for subject, Code Amendment CA 21-01, golf carts on public streets, but I didn't see anything about.
It's a typo.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
I thought.
Okay,
Okay,
so
yeah,
this
so
isn't linked, I actually
No,
saw it
sir.
as CA 21-02. I thought you were coming at me again for golf
I was
carts.
just bringing it back
No.
I
up.
thought you were locking me down on golf carts with speed
I mean,
limits.
it
In
it
an
behooves me to
indirect-
get you back,
In
but
an indirect way, I was like, wow.
Yes, sir.
Very impressive. Okay, just wanted to make sure we're acting on CA-21-02 tonight.
yes, sir.
Okay.
That's
So
all, man.
basically, what we're doing is we're raising the speed limit for the,
No.
in town. That's one of the things.
No, the speed limits aren't changing at all,
We're still
at
doing
all.
20 miles
Yeah, the
per
30,
hour.
the 35 miles per hour, that's a state law unless otherwise posted. And that's those signs you see in virtually every town. It says the speed limit is 35 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. That's a state law.
Right.
We're just making sure that's part of it. Everybody's clear on that. But the key language is unless otherwise posted, these paragraphs tell how we post those signs and what our procedure is
Okay.
to do that. And we try to simplify it.
Right.
That's it. Nothing will be different tomorrow when you wake up, so.
I was hoping I could go faster in town. I'm
No,
sorry.
good question.
I don't know.
Several board meetings ago, there was discussion about the speed limit on, or what to do about speeding on Poplar Street.
Yes.
Has anything changed, or where are we on that?
Harold has checked the signs, and there are signs up in that specific area that was mentioned a couple months ago. You know, it's more of an enforcement mechanism. There was no speed limit change, but there is a sign virtually right in that strip. I mean, I drive that road, Mayor, as you do, a good bit. And, you know, at some point, you don't even look at the signs, and that may be part of the case when you're there. But there is actually a speed limit sign right there in that strip. I don't know, Harold, I don't think you changed anything else since then, have you?
Yeah, the only thing we did is although it is DOT, we did clear out some brush that was right there in front of it to make it more visible and washed it off. But there were speed limit signs within the area that the concern was brought up about.
This may be the third rail on the railroad track. I know Highway 5 in Pinehurst has rumble strips on it. It's the same highway.
Huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, right by the golf course?
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got a number of rumble strips to slow traffic down on 5, and it is the same highway, and it is owned by the state of North Carolina. I don't know if anybody on that street that lives up there would be happy with them, but it's always an option to look at things like that. They're slowing traffic down on 5 in Pinehurst. It looks like we could do on Poplar Street, which is a state road.
Right, absolutely. No, you're right. So,
Maybe look into that. I don't know if that's a cure for any of this or not.
as long as they don't make us build a golf course before we put the strips up.
Well, that's true. But that is a state road in Pinehurst, and if you travel that, you do slow down.
Yep.
Those strips do work. I don't know if there's a place or two on Poplar Street that the neighbors up there would want to live with that or not, because those that live there would have to live with it, not just the ones that travel on 5. I mean, Poplar Street, excuse me. So, I think at one time we were maybe thinking about putting putting a blinking light up there like we have out in front here. And I don't know who owns those or where you get them. Do you rent them or buy them, or what do you do?
So if you want one, I think typically, and Harold may address this better than me, but typically they want us to pay for it and meet their requirements and get their permission to put them up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. And I did talk to DOT about that, and they instructed me they would be open if we wanted to, but we'd have to pay for the sign like we did here, get the power drop up there on Poplar, wherever we decide to put it. And, but they go through the standard encroachment process that we do with DOT. So we would apply for an encroachment agreement to erect the sign and pay for the power.
It's coming, it's already starting, but it's going to come a day when a lot of people are going to start using Poplar Street. And it's getting pretty crowded as it is up there.
Yeah, Mayor, if that's a desire, we can start looking at that because, I agree. It'll probably take us a couple months by the time it's all said and done, but it's feasible. There will be a cost, and don't quote me on this, and these signs may be different, but you're probably talking, I'm guessing something in the $2,000 or $3,000 range by the time you get it all up. Does that sound close, Harold?
I don't remember the exact amount, but I can get a quote. We'll get a cost estimate, and then.
Can you bring us a cost estimate back?
Yes, sir.
To a work session and let us talk about it, and then we'll have more time at a work session to discuss it then tonight.
Yep.
Can
Yes,
you
sir,
do
Mr.
that?
Mayor. And just to clarify, we're talking Poplar South notification.
Yeah, I think it's Poplar South,
South.
isn't it? Isn't that what is that people coming towards Aberdeen?
Yeah.
That
Yes, sir.
was definitely a concern. I couldn't say if it was both. I know the south was the
I
bigger
think
concern.
South is the,
Yeah, I think people have a tendency to not slow down as they approach in town until they see
That's
our
what it
flashing
is.
light.
yeah.
And if there was something farther up, as soon as they turn in and go past the back of Food Line, Thomas Tire, it's son of a stretch there.
What,
So-
if they're going past, and I've seen it I saw it the other day, I don't know if I've seen it more than once. When it gets to excessive speed, that sign out there says something. What, Chief, do you know what it says? Well, I was standing out here, I'd been downtown, and I was walking out the door, and here comes a car, and that thing starts going up. It's what is it, 20 out there, then it said they were doing 25, 30, 35. Then by the time the person got to the sign, it was going, slow down, slow down, slow down. They didn't break a sweat. Just kept right on going, even though it was telling them, slow down, slow down, slow down. And I thought, goodness gracious. Situational awareness is a good term for that.
Yes, sir. So I'll work on the quote and bring it back to the board.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we need a motion on this.
Mayor, I'll move that the board approves ordinance 21, code amendment, CA 21-02, amending the Aberdeen Code of Ordinances to modify the traffic code regulations.
Motion, is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. E, consider approval of resolution number 21-28, declaring reimbursement for proceeds of tax exempt financing.
Good evening, Mayor and Board again, please. I have before you a approval for a reimbursement resolution on proceeds for tax exempt financings. That's a requirement that when we pay for something in advance for the town, like a vehicle, radios, and we plan on financing it, we have to do a reimbursement resolution at least 60 days before, 60 days after that you spend that money. That's an IRS regulation. We did the same thing last year. And if you notice, I've got 3 exhibits here, things that were approved in the budget to be financed. That includes the fire truck, as well as one of the vehicles of Public Works area. Then Exhibit B is the projects that were basically capital outlay items we plan on paying cash for. That includes some equipment purchase items that's not in the capital outlay line item, as well as some project or a project that, could be what you call a wish list, where it may come to fruition, but it's not on either list. And I put that in there, so if when we do a financing, no matter if it's for $50,000 or $400,000, we can do it all at one time. Instead of piecemealing it together, it helps you get a better interest rate. So normally, what we would do is go out next spring and do the financing for items that we had already paid for. The exception to that this year is the fire truck. Everybody knows we're doing that with Columbia River. That's a little bit different, but it's still on the list. So for some reason, that financing went away, we've got it under the IRS regulations. So what I have before you again is a request to approve a reimbursement resolution so we can finance things using tax-exempt financing.
No, Butch, this is great. This shows everything that's on the table and some things that we could potentially be looking at. I know, working with the town manager, and based on your financial report, you know, the town is sitting pretty, at least at this point in time, financially. Is there a strategy to look for paying some of these things with town monies versus seeking financing? Or are we just going to finance these since we've already sunk the cost into it?
What I'll say is, Mr. Danley, is the items on Exhibit B, which are the largest number there, that's what we're going to pay cash for those anyway. If it's, say, some reason, hypothetically, the economy tanked, and we had already paid cash from items, like one of these items includes a $395,000 sewer back truck. We could finance that truck, since I've already done a reimbursement resolution, and get your money back for cash flow.
That's great. No, my point was just to make sure that it was clear that any time we have an opportunity to use monies and avoid a financing
Correct.
debt, to take on debt, that we do that as a town.
Correct. And one of the reasons, you know, say for instance, and again, I'm not advocating this, on the fire truck that the fire department will be getting sometime next month, $638,000. That's no prepayment penalty on that. So if for some reason you decide to pay cash and you make economics and financial sense, you could do it.
Yeah, that one does not. That's a great partnership there. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Anything from the board? We need a motion on this.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2128, declaring reimbursement from proceeds of tax-exempt financing.
That's a motion. Is there a second? There is a second. Discussion from the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. F, consider approval of an amendment to the town's compensation plan to add a COVID-19 vaccine incentive plan for designated town of Aberdeen employees.
Mayor, on this item, with the funds I referenced earlier, the ARP funds, one of the uses of those funds is to encourage your work staff to get vaccines, and there's other things you can use it for that are more directly related to COVID testing, masks, other PPE kind of piece of equipment. So this has been something that since the ARP funds were just funded recently, that several local governments are in the process of doing or have already done or moving forward, like we are in considering it strongly. So basically, we can use ARP funds for this kind of effort. And the idea is, trying to, protect and make sure our workforce is safe. We have, I don't know because we don't ask that question, but I'm estimating that our rate of vaccine is probably roughly the same as Moore County, which is in the mid to high 40% of our staff of vaccinated persons. And obviously, when you work closely, in a work environment, we don't want to make it mandatory, although I think after today's finding that it is a cleared use, not just an emergency use. If I understand it right, that was issued today, but I don't think we've ever wanted to go that far in terms of requiring it because, we respect the ability of an employee to choose. But on the other hand, this is an incentive to encourage employees, to get a vaccine, moving forward. And so basically, this policy outlines a change to our compensation plan, which is what the School of Government has recommended you do if you're going to go down this ARP funding to encourage vaccines, make it part of your compensation plan specifically for the COVID-19 vaccine. With this recent Delta variant, with the COVID-19, it's had an impact on our staff. There have been, I would say, almost as much, if not right up there with the amount of employees that have been quarantined and or positive that we had last year during the height of this. So it's an issue that we still think we can address, and hopefully this thing will come and go sooner than later. But we thought this might be a good way to, one, encourage our workforce who work together very closely at times, to get that vaccine moving forward and make the workforce safety. So what the recommendation is with, and again, using the ARP funds to, once there's a vaccine that's been started, the first of two, if you go with those vaccines, which is basically the Pfizer or the Moderna, if you obtain that first one by September 17th, which is a Friday, and then you follow through and get the second one, obviously you could use the Johnson & Johnson vaccine if that's one that you want to choose, and get that before September the 17th, and then you would be complete, and then show proof of your vaccine, either using a vaccine card, which everyone gets if they're vaccinated, or some other written, documenting evidence to support that you have received a vaccine, that you qualify for the $300 in cash, which would be processed through payroll. So there would be withholdings, matching, that sort of thing that would go through that. And that's, again, the recommendation of the school government to do it that way, which I think is the only proper way to do this. And also, we would award 2 days of personal leave time or vacation time as part of that incentive. So we think it would help. We think it would encourage a lot of employees who have been, somewhat less excited about the vaccine than others to move in that direction. So certainly if there's any questions, I think the policy in that next to last paragraph kind of lays out all the parameters. It's a little wordy, but I thought we need to kind of address everything, which says we're going to meet all of our requirements, all the requirements of the ARP with the guidelines to make sure that it's all properly channeled. But there is a pathway that's very clear even in the interim rules under the ARP amounts. So that's the recommendation of staff, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments about that.
I
So
just
this
want
is-
to say that I
sorry.
thought it was a very good idea. When I read that, I was very happy to read that. I think it's,
Thank you.
because this is very important.
I can't hear her.
We came a long way, and it seems like we're stepping back. So anything that we can do to make things better, I think we need to go ahead and do that, so we can see our holidays and we can get back to normal. So I really appreciate this, you doing this. I appreciate that.
So this is only going to apply to people that haven't had any vaccine at all? I mean, they could be in the middle of their second shot, or someone who just recently got it? I'm just
Actually,
curious.
we won't really know. You see there was some language in there about a booster. All we're asking is that you get a vaccine by September 17th. So if you can show a card on your vaccine status that you've got one by then, or thereafter, that shows it was started or completed by then, that's all we would ask. We're trying not to be any more intrusive into that background of an employee. So in the case of someone who's already got one, they could just show the card, or I would hope they would show proof of the booster, at some point, that would show that their booster was taken to a vaccine that had already been applied, because you can't get a booster right now. That program's not rolled out yet, but you could get a booster after that date, September 17th, and qualify, or before, if the booster program rolled out, this week or next week, which I think is coming very soon. There's, I think, the eligibility of who can get the booster. That would be employees that would qualify for that, probably won't hit until, sometime in September or thereafter. And if you look at the wording on there, it's saying the booster could apply to those who got an earlier vaccine and then got a booster later, as long as they had that vaccine before, that September 17th date, if that makes sense. So we're
Right.
not trying to
That makes
really
sense.
punish anybody.
My question was just like someone that might have gotten it in July wouldn't be eligible for it because this is a new incentive to get people to go get it. It's not like, yeah, you got it, so you're going to get,
Well, I guess the short answer is yes, I think they could be eligible to receive that, based on
okay.
either a
So
booster
if someone's
or
already
just
gotten it
proof.
and proved to you they've gotten it, then. it's-
Exactly.
Well, that's
exactly.
nice. I mean,
Exactly, yeah, we're trying to not punish anybody, but, meet all the requirements under the ARP guidelines. And, I think the booster is a good one, along with just showing us the proof that you obtained
Yeah.
one.
Can I add on to that?
Yes, sir.
I was following what you said. So if a town employee has already gotten both shots, he's not eligible for this? Is
And I
that-
did not say that.
Oh, okay.
I did not say that.
All right. That's what I'm trying to get clarified. Is
No,
what you were
that,
asking?
yeah, Mayor, that was exactly what I was going to bring up. I believe that, it is a public health issue for those 40% that you kind of threw out there as employees that have already been vaccinated, whether it was back in February, January, or have not yet. They are all eligible if they come forward to the town and present adequate documentation to get that incentive.
Yes.
Perfect. That's outstanding, because I've read where there are companies that are doing that now. For anyone who has gotten the vaccination in the past, if they come forward and show their vaccination card, they will be incentivized for doing that and not waiting to have done it. So that's a win-win on both sides.
True.
I like that. What about the amount, dollar amount in days? How did you, as a staff, come together on that number?
And that's up for discussion. I think the dollar amount was based on just number of employees, estimated amount of people who would be vaccinated or started by September 17th and completed. And we estimated an amount, and it came to somewhere between low end of 22,000, high end around 30,000.
And that was taken into account the entire town staff?
Absolutely.
Okay, that works for me.
And again, the entire staff that we think will end up getting vaccinated.
Or have already.
Or have already, well, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
That
Ones at the end of the day who will be vaccinated by that time. And again, it's an estimate, it's not a forced mechanism, it's still giving some flexibility there, and we don't expect anybody to get to 100%, but so we use a lower number, but.
It's a tool, but
Yep.
I appreciate having that in the plan.
That was my question. I was wanting to make sure that those that have already done it were still involved with this. That was my question. Thank you. Any other questions on this? Comments? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the vaccine incentives for the town employees.
Motion in a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Down to G, appointments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Director Adam Crocker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as we've discussed previously, we've got a couple of openings on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. One, we need a fulfillment of an open one-year term. The other is an open seat, which would be our general two-year term. You have the 4 applications before you. We have contacted each recently, and they are still interested in serving.
Let me make a motion. So I need to make these individually, make a motion on the one-year term and a motion. Excuse me? The motion's for both?
No, it should be for which person you want to serve in which
Sure,
term.
right, individually, correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I make a motion that we appoint Corral, I believe it is, Lehorner, am I pronouncing that correctly? I'm sorry. Korral, Loehnner, to the one-year term that expires January 22.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on one-year term, is that correct? Is that what you just said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's motion and a second. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And we go to the second one, number 2.
And I make a motion that we appoint Eli Schilling to the new 2-year term that expires January 1st, 23.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you'll let them know.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's see, where are we? Down to other business. Does anyone have any other business? Anyone?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
The comment that I have is that in 2 weeks ago in the Sunday's paper, I don't know if you guys read it, but it was about the Rosenwald School. Did anybody read that?
In
It
Adderall?
was in Pine Bluff.
It's in Adderall.
Yeah.
I can't, can you speak a little louder, Miss Commissioner
They can't hear.
Okay.
Laney?
No, I was speaking about the article in the Sunday paper about 2 weeks ago. It was about the Rosenwald School,
Yes.
and I was just asking if anybody read that.
Yes.
I just want to say, when I moved down here, I didn't know anything about the Rosenwald schools, and then I found out what it was all about, and I toured. There's one left out in Pine Bluff or Adderall.
It's Adderall.
Yeah, Adderall.
Yeah,
Adderall is kind
I've
of a
seen
part
that
of
one, yeah.
Pine Bluff, but it's out.
Don't do that.
Okay.
It's not.
I won't do it. I'll just keep talking. But anyway, a lot of people, I didn't know about Julius Rosenwald, that he had built about 5,000 schools across the South for the African Americans that were unable to go to school. And I guess I wanted to talk about it because Triangle J wrote the grant for actually for the school to be rebuilt. I mean, refurbished, because if you go out there and look at it, it's a mess. So they wrote the grant, and they were able to get that grant. And they wrote a grant for that, and they also wrote a grant for another school in Johnston County. I think that was a Rosenwald school also. So I did take the article and send it to the director, Lee Worsley, and the people that helped get that done. And he did send a note back thanking me because they had not seen the article, of course, because it was in Moore County. So I just felt good about it that Triangle J was involved, and just being a delegate to that, I always feel good about that. It's a great organization. It has helped so many people, so many municipalities in our county, and I just wanted to say that. I really feel good about that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Yeah, that building is in terrible shape. I mean, I've seen it all my life down there. I don't know how many are actually left in the south. There are some that are still left. I ran across one down in Robertson County on a back road that is still standing, but I don't know what's become of it, and this was a couple of years ago. But yeah, I hope they can restore it and make it into something that's useful before it falls down. It's in bad shape.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a place you could go and find those listed, Wilma?
Pardon me?
Is there a place like a website or somewhere you can go and actually find where there still exist in the Rosenwald schools?
Is there a site?
Yeah, like a website or something that gives you where they
Yeah,
are.
you can look up Rosenwald schools. You could probably look up Adderall too, but
Yeah. I've been by that one
That
many
one,
times, yeah.
The one in Southern Pines, the land trust, a piece of that was a Rosenwood School, but that was torn down and a whole new school built. So the Rosenwood School itself is not really,
Yeah, it's not there.
it's not there, but it is, the memory is there, the history is there. But
Yeah,
out in Addor, A-D-D-O-R, the school is actually there, so you can go out and see that. Yeah.
yeah, I saw in Sunday's paper, I believe it was, the mayor was a part of a groundbreaking for the veteran.
Yes, they're building a home over in Winds Way for a veteran. That he and his family, I think he has 4 children. He was severely injured in Iraq. And he told what had happened because he's listed as a Marine sergeant, but he served in, I think I'm getting this the right way, he served in the Marine Corps and got out. Came home and he sat around for a couple of years and saw what was happening, so he went back and enlisted in the Army. And so he served in the Army when he was injured in Iraq. But he said that he saw what was happening and he just felt like he needed to go back and do it again. And that's when he was injured. It was a great turnout. If you weren't there, you missed a wonderful turnout. A lot of people showed up, a lot of people that were there that were supporting this effort. The House, I think Justin said it was approved in what? How many days was that House approved? It didn't take long.
Our typical 2-day turnaround.
It was 2-day turnaround. And the lady that was, I think the keynote speaker was talking about taking, what, 4 months to get a turnaround, and I don't even know what she was talking about.
Yeah, yes, sir. That neighborhood is on septic. Yeah. The 4 months was not with the town of Aberdeen, like I said, but from the time my staff received the application, it took us 2 business days to approve the permit, and that's typical for us with residential houses.
They were appreciative of that, and they actually had me on the list of speakers. I didn't know that I was supposed to speak until I got there, but it was already printed on the agenda, and I did not mind doing it. But I did want to mention, and I did in my brief speech, because there wasn't anything for me to spend time out there. It was not about what I was saying. I made it clear that this will be the 3rd Veterans House in Aberdeen that has been built for injured veterans. And I had a lady and her husband come up from another town in this area after it was over with, and she said, "It's the 3rd one in Aberdeen?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, it's the 3rd one that will be built in Aberdeen." And her comment was, "Well, how can we get one in my town?" So it's a good thing, but I thought that was quite telling that she wanted to know how to get one in her town. So I said, well, you talk to these people out here, they can put you on the right track. Okay, anybody else with other business? All right, I'm going to close out other business, and then we're going to go to number 9, which is a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 3, to protect the attorney-client privilege in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11, parentheses A, parentheses 5, to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken on or behalf of the public body negotiating the price of and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property. So we'll have to go into, what do we do? Go into closed session now, then we'll have to come back and go out of closed session and go and then end the public hearing, the town meeting tonight. So with that said, let's take about a 5-minute break and get down to the conference room. need a motion to go into into open session. All right, and somebody second it, all right, all in favor? Now, Ms. Wilbur. Is there a second? There's a second. All in favor? All right, we're out. Thank you.